Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us. Brad is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at GCN. I'm Vincent Finelli, and we broadcast 2 hours a day from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. If you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line, 605-477-3249. Doc Ram's with us. Welcome, Doc Ram.
Good morning, Vincent.
Crystal
Hello?
Clear.
Can you hear me okay?
Clear. Oh, yeah. This is great. Absolutely great.
Well, I'm working with new equipment, too. I have a really nice mic bowl and new speakers and my laptop. Thank you, Russell. Russell Ringy, my tech support, put this computer together for me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, it's working 5 by 5. So, Rick, I was thinking about lots of things today. I want to talk about climate change. I want to talk about something that a great American philosopher said that, think of how stupid the average person is and then realize half of them are more stupid than that. And that was, George Carlin. And I think we're doomed. I think we're doomed because the average person doesn't care, and the average person doesn't care to think, and even more importantly, the average person doesn't care to act. Would you agree with that? I mean, have you seen the average person? I mean, every time I go to the big city, Springfield, or every time I go to Walmart, or every time I go to Sam's Club, I see people who are just careless. Absolutely careless with their vehicles.
The average people aren't going to survive. It's going to be Walmart shoppers is idiomatic. I mean, that's I have some pictures, man. Walmart shoppers, there it is. It is a classic concept. And people not paying attention to what they look like or what people might think about them. They just do it. And there's going to be blood. And it's going to happen shortly. And we have fires again here in Oregon today. Mm-hmm. We have the Klondike fire 3 days ago has been contained, and then there was a loud explosion. The fire started up again, and when you looked from space, there it was, lava. It is literally the plate is shifting, and it's up in Canada, up in the territories up north of BC. Lava is showing. Down in the Trinities, there is a small slip. Lava is showing. There is a volcano off of Crescent City, about 60 miles off of Crescent City, underwater, that when it goes, we're going to have a plate shift. The Yellowstone is now showing lava in Ohio. There is an activity with the lava flowing. It is about to go. When it goes, the New Madrid fault line is going to slip. And the part that I have concern is that you have all those reactors right now pumping it out. There they go with all that nuclear waste, nowhere to put it, nothing to do with it. What are we going to do with it? And they have not turned, they're all leaking. They're all leaking. It is going to be possibly one of the worst disasters in world history, not humanity, but before humanity. It's going to be the worst one possibly ever. Trial by fire.
Rick, as you say that, I keep thinking about, how stupid the average person is. Not my words, George Carlin's words.
Complacent might be a better word. Complacent.
Well, yeah, but it's all the above. It's ignorance, it's complacence, it's apathy, it's laziness, it's all of that wrapped into
denial.
Probably
the idea that
denial.
Denial. The idea that it's going to happen. There's no way it's not going to happen, but I'm going to pretend.
And I think George Carlin, I never met him, never heard him live, but I have a feeling that he just wrapped all of those words, all of those descriptors into the word stupid. And I think he was absolutely right. And, when you talk about the Walmart shoppers, you can see it. If you go to a Walmart and you just stand out of the way near the intersection where people go in and out of the store, the main entrance, one of the two main entrances to a superstore, it's all marked with diagonal white lines to let you know, pay attention, boys and girls, pay attention to this area because there's a lot of people walking around, cars are going through it, and you see people just walking out, looking down at their phones, talking on their phones, pushing their carts while they're talking on their phones, not paying attention to the cars. And the cars are being piloted by people who aren't paying attention because they're on their phones. And this is like a recipe for disaster, a recipe for blood squirting everywhere from people being run over by all of these people not paying attention. The walkers, the cart pushers, and the pilots of the automobiles and light trucks. It's just a microcosm of how stupid we are and how stupid we've become. Is it really, really, really that important to be paying attention to a cell phone? And let me give you another example. So, and I look at the Laclede Electric Cooperative annual circus. It's a circus disguised as an annual board of directors meeting. But my son told me that there was a guy sitting next to him. My son was in the audience. I was on stage. And the guy looked up while I started to speak for about 30 seconds and then went back to his phone. He went back to his phone. Now, what is that guy doing at the board of directors meeting if he's not paying attention to the most critical part? And I'm not saying I was the most critical part, but the presentations by those who were running to decide the electric rates and the policies and the procedures of the cooperative. This guy's not paying attention. He's looking down at his phone. Now, I'm sure he's saying, hey, I can multitask. Yeah, really? I don't think so. I don't think that people can really remember what happened when they were on the phone, when they were talking on their cell phone. And the proof of it is people will be on their cell phone talking while they're operating their vehicle, and then 20 minutes will go by and they'll go, wow, I didn't know we went through there already. Gosh, time sure does fly when you're behind the wheel. No, it doesn't. You just are oblivious to all around you, or almost all around you, when you are on your cell phone.
I'm concerned about preparation and not being prepared. And then when something does happen, what first happens is panic. There's the different stages of grief that one goes through, and denial is part of it. I don't believe that this is actually happening. I'm not going to, it takes like a period of time before you get to a place of acceptance that it has to change. There's no way around it. You're going to have to pony up. Now, the prepping that I'm talking about are basics, like your water and your hygiene. When you go to the toilet, how are you going to manage that if you can't flush your toilet? Do you have a plan? Do you have lye around that you could put on the manure? What are you going to do if you have to go to the toilet in a city where you live, in your apartment? Nobody has given a thought of that. And then when you drive the freeway, like I did, I just came back from Vancouver Island, as you know, and the amount of trucks that are on a highway. It used to be a joke. It was called convoy. Today, it is literal. There's one truck after another. There are more trucks on I-5 than automobiles at some times of the day. That's not healthy in a number of ways, to include so-called just-in-time delivery. You can expect delays in everything when a disaster happens. The disaster is going to have all kinds of things with, exhaustion, and that I don't know what to say other than it's time for you to rethink your life, to sit down and say to yourself, what is it that's important to me? I don't think anybody's ever done that. Not really.
You're absolutely right.
Is it my family? Is it my life? Do I care to live through something that's a disaster? Most people would say no.
Rick, I got a call, I was on a call yesterday from one of our class. His name is Robert, and Robert from Kansas. And he was extolling his thoughts on USA Prepares. And he mentioned a number of instructors. He mentioned Dr. Norman Shealy. He mentioned Rich Scheben. He mentioned you many, 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 many times. And Bert Bertonis and others. And what he was saying is that USA Prepares is paying attention and talking about things that other broadcasts flat out don't talk about. And when he was talking about you, he was talking about the level of the depth of your thinking and how you question things that no one talks about, like what you just said, which is what's important to us. What are we doing? Why are we racing around like rats on a treadmill or mice on a treadmill? What's the purpose of all this? So we can have enough money to buy beer and go to the... What was that?
One of the key words is called distraction.
Yeah.
We're distracted to the point where we're not paying attention. What isn't?
Okay. I've got a comment about that when we come back after the short break. And in Mark in Illinois, you're up right after my comment. Please don't touch that dial. Doc Ram's with us. So at the annual meeting of Laclede Electric, the CEO and general manager, Mark Rocker, took a moment, and I'm going to read this. It's only a very, very short paragraph. And it's from the website. Quote, in his remarks, CEO/general manager Mark Rocker took a moment to talk about what it was like in rural areas before electricity, referencing lighting, cooking, heating, entertainment, and setting poles. Quote, of course, so much of our entertainment today, whether it comes from the TV, radio, or computer, depends on the kilowatt hour that Laclede Electric provides. Just think, there would be no smartphones or cell phone if there were no electricity. End quote. The point I'm trying to make is, there we have the CEO at the annual meeting talking about entertainment. Entertainment, distractions. How important really is that text? How important is that that call? How important is that game on your cell phone? To me, I'm doing just fine without a cell phone. I really am. I met a guy yesterday, and he couldn't believe that I didn't have a cell phone. And he quizzed me on, technology, like, how am I getting by? How am I getting by without a cell phone? Well, quite well, thank you very much. I really am. Mark in Illinois, welcome. You're on with Doc Ram.
Yeah, good morning. I had a question, or actually, I had a statement that I'd like to make, but I would ask, who is Amalek, and why would they want to attack God's people, Israel? And when I was stationed in the Army in Palestine, I was stationed on an Army base in Ramallah, and that was the base where the British planes took off in 1917 during World War I, and they liberated the city of Jerusalem. That's actually a scripture in Isaiah 31, verse 5, as birds flying over Jerusalem. And the Mongol Turks, which were descendants of the house of Esau, Amalek, they were inhabiting the city, and not one shot was fired, and the city of Jerusalem and the nation of Israel came back in the hands of the Druid, Celtic, Anglo-Saxon kindred people of Israel. And so we have in Zechariah, where it talks about the nation of Israel being invaded by the armies of Russia and China. We also have it in Jeremiah 50, 51, and Ezekiel 38, 39, where it's talking about America, Ephraim, Canada, Manasseh, America, 13 tribe. And we have to understand who is Israel. And the Russians understand this because they are Amalek. They are Gog and Magog. And the Bible is very clear that they're going to attack us. They're going to detonate hydrogen bombs over American cities. You can study this, and you can see this, and we know that nuclear war is coming. And I think it's very close. I think we crossed the threshold. It started in 1979, and we're at the point of time right now. I just wanted to see what Richard would say about that.
I think the first thing I'd say to you is thank you for your service. I'm so very sorry what's happening in America right now. I understand biblical scripture. I have to put on my science hat, which is not always correct, and state that I have no clue what is about to happen. I certainly hope there is no war, because really, I'm reminded of the 60s song about, war. What's it good for? Nothing. It doesn't solve anything. It's usually a bunch of old men sending a bunch of young men out to die on some personal gain, dealing with money and ideology of religious beliefs, of one belief over another. And I believe in protecting my home and family. But where do you draw the line on where that home is and your family? Today, in my opinion, the United States is possibly the worst bully I have ever encountered in history. It's just intimidating to think about. And now we have the Agent Orange thing coming up in with Monsanto. The way we went into deforesting. I don't have an answer to you. What do I think? I'm not interested in going to war. I don't want to hurt anybody.
I agree. Mark, thank you so much for your call.
Yeah, thank you.
Mark in Illinois brought up some really good points, and he mentioned hydrogen bomb. Class, we've referred to them in the past as the H bomb because it employs fusion isotopes of hydrogen. And the first test was carried out by the United States in 1952. And a number of countries have the H bomb: United States, Russia, United Kingdom, France, China, India, Pakistan, and North Korea, to name some. And the H bomb is really devastating. Now, during World War II, right at the end of World War II, the United States forced Japan to surrender by releasing 2 atomic bombs on 2 of the cities, Nagasaki and Hiroshima, in Japan. And it forced the surrender of Japan. Well, a hydrogen bomb has the potential to be 1,000 times more powerful than an atomic bomb. This is pretty serious stuff. So, Doc Ram, I guess the question that I have, if we had a war with hydrogen bombs, does anybody actually win? I mean, how do you win that? When you destroy the Earth?
Yeah, that's the question of why no one has actually deployed anything like that. We have tactical nukes now that have been deployed. We have, and I can prove it, and I can prove it, anybody, including Carnegie Mellon. There's my challenge in throwing down a gauntlet. I've had enough of some of these universities covering up such things as geoengineering and the rest of it. And things are happening around. Yes, nobody would win. There are weapons of mass destruction now, the likes of which you couldn't even fathom. There's one for the sun. Take it out. Now, how does that work? You're going to go blast someone else's home on another star? Why would we build bigger, better, and more? You know, that's one of the demons called greed, and another one called sloth. And I've had, I'm going to start saying things about this aspect publicly because it needs to be said. For me, I live on a small piece of land. I have a single acre on top of a mountain. I've got neighbors around that I mind my business. I don't try to figure out what they're doing. It's none of my business. As long as it does not affect my life or family, I allow them to live and let live. But this concept of what the man before was talking about in war and how it's inevitable, who said that? War is inevitable. Well, history. That's one of the things. But that's where a leader goes against another leader and trying to see who's got the biggest Corvette. And I don't want to be at war with anything. During Vietnam, I was in grad school. And I had one tour over in Cambodia. And what I saw over in Cambodia was Americans breaking the law. They were growing poppy. See, and I watched it. I saw it. Now, I don't believe anything in the media anymore. And with good due reason. They are no longer responsible. There is no such thing as Watergate, where they're trying to expose the real truth and bring it out to the public. I challenge the mainstream media to man up and start reporting things that need to be said by the common citizen. That's why I have my girlfriend's parents are offended if I or she were to even mention that 9/11 might have been a false flag. Why? And why is it so offensive? This is what's wrong, is the complacency, believing that what our government is doing is the right thing, when in fact, government at all levels today is broken. It's corrupt. There are individuals within each agency trying to do the right thing, and at some point, they're compromised and have to make a decision to continue and keep your mouth shut, or to go public or walk away. And I have several friends in law enforcement that have literally walked away. I had one friend come all the way up here to Oregon from California, discovered a serial killer. And it turned out this serial killer to animals. They were killing animals and leaving a cigarette butt as a signature in the mouth. Guess who it turned out to be? It turned out to be the local county police department doing dogfighting, and the way they reminded people of their debts. I don't have an answer. What I do is try to mind my own ship and walk the best I can in terms of setting an example for our children. And to that extent, that's what's important to me right now, is our children. And what they see and what they learn and how they decide they want to do it. And you see a lot of our children are like zombies. They're not engaged. They can be a group of them together, and none of them are having a discussion with each other. They're all on cell phones, voided out. They're lost in a crowd of friendship. It is a set of values. Yeah, go ahead.
A couple days ago, 2 days ago, I was heading in my truck toward the big city, and it's always a risk when I do that.
Yeah.
And there was a vehicle, a car approaching me, and we were both in this double yellow line. And he was coming toward me from around a curve, slammed on his brakes, did a K-turn across a two-lane highway on a curve, across a double yellow line, and took off. and now we're both going the same direction. He was slightly ahead of me. Then he slammed on his brakes maybe a quarter of a mile later after he made this illegal turn, dangerous turn, careless turn, reckless turn, took off, then pulled into another road, slammed on his brakes, and proceeded to cut in front of me again to go back the way he came from. Okay? And I've installed a stupometer, 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 in my truck, and it's connected to my truck's horn. And I've got it set for 10 seconds. So whenever my stupometer goes off, the horn blares for 10 seconds. And it's always the same reaction. Whenever somebody does something stupid, careless, reckless, and puts my life and whoever's in the vehicle with me at risk of being involved in a crash because of their careless, stupid, reckless behavior, my horn goes off for 10 seconds. And I always get the same reaction. The guy or gal makes a fist, but it's not a complete fist. It's actually one finger in a fist. And I always get that reaction for my horn going off because of their careless, stupid, reckless behavior. And it's getting more and more frequent. People are literally out of control behind the wheel of their vehicles.
You know, in Muslim religion, one of the punishments is to remove that finger.
Well, I think it'd be great. I think it'd be great. Let's start this afternoon. You know, why do people do that? Why do people, when they've been caught doing something reckless, wrong, dangerous, why do they feel that they should give that sign of defiance to the person who caught them? You know, like the gal who was alongside of me in Lebanon, Missouri, and she throws her cigarette right outside. You know, she's huffing and puffing on her cigarette, you know, like a millennial type. She's you know, shortening her life, which, you know, might not be that all that bad of a thing based on her behavior. Throws her cigarette out right in front of my vehicle. Why would she do that? You know, we're in stop-and-go traffic. She doesn't think anything of it. My stupometer told my horn to go off. It went off, 10 seconds, and what does she do? She gives me the finger. It's not, I didn't cause this. I'm reacting to her careless behavior. I put a post on the internet, on USA Prepares, about if you're caught throwing trash on my farm, there's a $10,000 fine. And what's the reaction? On stage, the board of directors member chastises me for being not civil, because I think it's wrong to throw trash on someone else's property. I don't want my cattle harmed. I don't want my cattle's legs being cut up by broken bottles. I don't want them eating balloons. I don't want, you know, that happy birthday balloons. These hydrogen or helium balloons are the dumbest thing I can think of, because all of them take off. Just happy birthday, you know, $5, $10. I don't know how much these silly things cost, but people buy them without thinking that this 4-year-old's going to hold it for a short time until he lets go of it. And then it goes off, it takes off, and it lands somewhere. It lands on someone else's property, and it's now trash. And it's for someone else to pick it up. So I'm thinking that all of these balloons end up someplace else. And the cows love them. They want to eat them. And they don't kill them. And it makes me angry. How stupid can we be? Thank you, George Carlin. The lower half is just as dumb as a box of rocks. And he's angry. Yep. So, class, that's what I do. When someone cuts me off, my horn goes off. I don't like the sound of the horn, but they need to know it. And it's not just beep. It's 10 seconds worth of, you really did something stupid, and you ought to be ashamed of yourself. And don't do it again. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. So, Rick, here's an interesting story on the dailymail.co.uk. So, worldwide scandal. coverage for this scandal is worldwide. So it says, the headline says, I'm just going to read part of it. Well, it's just another nightmare for Brad Pitt's family church in Missouri, embroiled in a child porn scandal. Brad's parents, Jane and Bill Pitt, have been long-time members of Ridgecrest Baptist Church in Brad's hometown of Springfield, Missouri. In April 2017, music director Craig Weinke was arrested for sharing child porn. He's recently pleaded guilty to receiving and distributing child porn involving a female under the age of 17. So we have this scandal in this church, this Baptist church in Springfield, Missouri. Now, why am I talking about this? Because Ridgecrest Baptist Church owns a venue that's been used for conventions. Okay? And I paid my $10 to go to a convention there years ago. And the son-in-law of the preacher, Hosey Ballou, called the cops on me and called 911. Vincent Finelli's here. Called the cops on me. Then the cops came to arrest me for going to a convention, not protesting, not in body armor, not with a face mask. I didn't have my gun with me that day on purpose. I just paid my $10 to go to a convention, and I was not causing a single problem. However, they called the cops on me. Not once, but twice. That is Ridgecrest, praise the Lord, Baptist Church. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And now they're embroiled in a child pornography scandal. Yeah, with a member of their church, a trusted member of their church. And they made worldwide news with the scandal. So, Rick, what we're finding out is politicians, civil servants, sheriffs, the criminality just goes on and on and on. Do you have any comments?
I know. It's just a promotional gimmick to build their church. There's better ways to do it. Well, that's all it's about. It has nothing to do with pornography or you. It has to do with not walking the teachings of Christ, making judgment on another person. And you call it like it is. And promotion is promotion is promotion. The other side of that is where the church doesn't do it. Like the Church of Rome and Pope. I am very disappointed in what religion is becoming, pretty much like politics.
Okay.
So I was reading I'm gonna say, man, I try to do the right thing, and I make mistakes. And when I get punished for it, I try not to make the same mistake twice. There it is. Promotion.
Rick, I was trying to do a little bit of studying about the color of roofs, because I absolutely positively believe that we are affecting our climate with the things that we do. For example, I think that although it's great to have an automobile and a truck, and I think it's great to have those conveniences, and I think it's great to be able to use them for beneficial purposes, I believe the exhaust is not so good. Okay? And I think that there are alternatives that we could pursue, but I don't think we've been pursuing them as vigorously as we could. And in that light, I'm thinking that the roof colors that we select are poor choices based on the environment and the climate change. And I would like to suggest that we are careful in the colors that we select, and I'd like to read a little bit of a post about what others have to say about the color of roofs when we come back. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. Rick, I was reading an article on the internet about roof color, and it seems that roof color, to me, makes a huge difference in the temperature of the attic and of the second story or the first story of a house, depending on whether the roof is attached to the first story or the second story of a house. So if you live in a hot, sunny climate and you're interested in having a cool house, it doesn't make much sense to have a black roof. And I have been asking and calling roof companies, manufacturers, for information about roof color. And what is the index, if you will? So if you say that the color, let's say it's black, absorbs the most sunlight, the most heat, and transmits it through the roof shingle to the house, if that would be, let's say, a 100 rating, what would be a less than 100 rating? Would it be white or green or blue or orange or whatever the colors may be? So what is the index? I can't get one. I can't find one. And I was reading an article that said that, a dark-colored roof may have a small effect on melting snow. That seems ridiculous to me. Absolutely ridiculous, because if you just look around, you'll see that the snow melts faster on a dark roof than it does on a light-colored roof, especially when the sun can just be exposed to a portion of the roof, and it just seems to melt the snow much more quickly. And, of course, the darker colors attract more heat or absorb more heat from the sun, which gets transmitted through the roofing materials to the house. Do you agree with what I'm saying, that dark is hotter, light is less hot?
Well, yes and no. I'm of two minds of this. There it is, Two-Face, out of Batman. It has to do with absorption bands and bandwidths of frequencies that are hitting the roof. And habitat dictates some of it. If you were green, you might absorb certain bandwidths that preference to green and yellow and or white and or black and or infrared, red, black, and so on. The darker the colors in the spectrum of the rainbow tend toward infrared, which, guess what? That's heat. So there it is. You want to move away from heat. So that would be more of a reflected, shiny surface rather than a color surface. And you want to think in terms of where you are in latitude, because that's going to dictate the kinds of bandwidths that are hitting your house. On the equator, it might be, I don't know, a wood color, like a light tan brown. That's because the wood there doesn't absorb the colors and the bandwidth. You have to think in terms of not color versus heat as much as what are you trying to reflect away from you. Of course, there are certain bandwidths that just laugh at you and just go right through the roof.
So, Rick, I have this...
I'm sorry it isn't. It's a convoluted answer.
Okay, I have this rule about buying cars, and I have violated this rule sometimes when for example, we have a rule, no more black cars. No more black cars. Why? Because they're really hot in the summer. They're unbearable. You've got to put the windows down.
Yeah, on your dashboard, and they're reflecting. Have you noticed that the color of the reflected panels that you get to put on your dashboard are silver, and they're shiny in that they will reflect rather than absorb? Now, the material that you use is just as important, because a shiny surface will reflect some bandwidth, whereas if you had a more rough surface, it has more surface area. The bump going up and down, all of that bump going up and down in roughage, if you would, is acting as twice as much absorption coefficient in terms of square feet. And that's why in Pullman, we had Palouse Hills, we had higher yields of wheat because we had more plants per acre going up and down a hill rather than a flat hill. So, you have several variables going on here. For me, That's why a lot of barns are made with flashing, that will flash the light, will reflect it away. And double paint it, where you have something underneath that, just like you would with a window. One gets absorbed and the other doesn't transfer that energy to the next layer of glass. It's trapped in between the two. And this is what you call a heat sink, where it all sits in one spot rather than going through something or becoming a radiator. Roofs. I always preferred putting the top of a roof with sun panels. And if you're in a cold environment, you put pipe up there with water, and you paint those black, and that's your heat system. There's all kinds of, and instead of using a heat pump, you're using a water pump. It's a way of looking at what you're trying to do with your house. Pressure positive. Like right now, we're in a deep, terrible smoke thing. And the particles are so fine, about 800 nanometer. They'll just fall right through a roof. And so we're trying to wear a mask to filter out the smoke is kind of silly. And a smoke jumper is absorbing that right through his entire body. There's someone to respect because he's giving his life for trying to fight your fire. That's why firemen were always considered, like law enforcement, something to be respected. Thank you for your service. It's giving up.
Wait. Hold it. Are you equating firemen with the cops?
I'm equating them with serving men. Serving our community. It's that, what is that? Serve and protect. That kind of thing. Yeah, from that point of view, that's what I'm trying to say. Serve and protect. They're going into risk. I remember when the Seattle Police Department was not compared to the Seattle Fire Department. And it was the fire department that everybody respected because they would go into a flaming building to get your child or dog and putting their life at risk. And when you talk about smoke and the particle sizes on it, that's why you have air conditioning, not so much to cool the house, but to keep the house pressure positive so those particles don't fall in, they push away. Now, it's you don't want to breathe that stuff, and it's going to fall on your body, and there isn't any kind of clothing that's going to stop some of that smoke particle because it's so small. Well, the way you do that is you wear a pressure suit, or you have your house pressured. I'm trying to give you a concept of how you reflect heat, light, particles of any size. And there's all different bandwidths. That's why we have a rainbow. It's all different. And each one has its own absorption bandwidth with the material and or particle size. And the visible light is a wide range of wavelengths. And so, when you talk about trying to cool or heat something, all of the materials are just as important as the colors. And
so, Rick, if
and
we
the surface,
are
the actual surface, like if it's slick or roughage, yeah. That's why I like to wear wool.
If we're in an environment where there's a lot of smoke, as you are and Dane Wigington is, are we better off using an ionizer to electromagnetically charge particles that will fall down?
Ionizers are working with water vapor and if you don't have if you have a low water vapor, running in your parts per million in your air, an ionizer isn't going to hardly do much of anything. That's why you always. What we used to do is what they call a swamp cooler, where you put a fan across the pan of water so that you're hydrating the air around you. And that's possibly one of the single best things the Midwest could be doing right now, aside from your air conditioning, is inside the house, you have a small fan blowing across a large body or pan, a cookie-shaped pan of water. And that will hydrate the air, which is way better for your lungs. Unbelievably.
Mm-hmm.
I was
I was thinking about a negative ion generator.
Yeah, where you're changing the ion exchange. See, that's the other part of it. Your negative ion generator is basically clustering water. That's old Willard water, or Gary Reams, which is H3O7 with a free radical ion. That means 3 water molecules that have clustered together like a waterfall and has a free ion moving. And that is activated water that is so very healthy for your lungs. That's why you like being around a waterfall. The water is falling, it's crushing against itself, creating these, what old man Willard called Willard water. It's hydrated water that is, goes into the air differently and is, working inside your lung with dust particles, smoke particles, and the rest of it, allowing you to, have a better exchange of oxygen. Now, that's what a negative ion generator does, whereas an air conditioner is positive ions, and you're getting it's not healthy for you. People that stay in air-conditioned homes for very long periods of time will start to experience old respiratory problems.
Okay. When we come back, can we talk about using ultraviolet light to help those people who have respiratory problems? I'm experimenting with that here at the farmhouse. I don't have any results yet, but I was thinking about using a Petri dish and see if it works. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. RichardAllenMiller.com. RichardAlanMiller.com. You can go to his website and buy his books. And Rick, we were talking about respiratory issues and people who have respiratory problems. And so what I wanted to do was experiment with ultraviolet light C in my home. So I bought some LED strips that are UVC, in the UVC range specifically. And the plan is I'm going to divide the return duct into 2 halves. So I'm going to have the ultraviolet light LED bar in one of them facing a Petri dish with nutrient agar, and the other half will not have that light. So the light will only be in one half of the return duct. And I want to very carefully place these nutrient agar Petri dishes to see if the ultraviolet light actually has any effect on killing the bacteria in the return duct of our air conditioning and heating system. Do you think that's a reasonable scientific approach?
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Yeah, I think you'll find all different kinds of molds and things will grow in certain light bands that won't in others. It'll be interesting. Keep notes. A little boy scientist.
All right.
Yeah, like chemcraft.
Well, I haven't been in a science fair in a long time, so I thought I'd start my own at the farmhouse here.
Sounds like fun. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Ted in Washington, thank you for being on hold with us. Welcome.
Certainly. Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. So I had several ideas for today's show topics. The first one, I was curious about indoor plants that are specifically favorable to cleaning indoor air in our homes.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you for bringing that up. Sure. Yes,
absolutely. I don't have any specific names or what species they are, but I know that there's a handful or more that we can strategically place in the corners of pretty much every room. They don't mind the dark, and they take our exhale and contaminants and convert it into clean air.
Well, they clean some of the air. Yeah, of certain contaminants. Each one's different. You know, there's a firm up in Kelowna that I'm going to be checking out that makes special LEDs for underground vertical aquaculture systems. And I'm starting to realize that certain plants like broccoli require a different bandwidth than cauliflower. And that cauliflower prefers a different water temperature than broccoli, determining where in the food chain the one is put with its specific LED and the next one down, because as the water falls, it heats up. Isn't that an interesting concept in terms of
Absolutely.
bacteria? Yeah. Okay, so there's hierarchies like that going on in everything, including the soil. We call that mycorrhiza, and our gut, we call that intuition. It is a way of resonant cavity oscillation going from one bandwidth of frequencies to the next. And with that, often with resonance, you get amplification of the signal. That part I found extremely interesting. That's what I'm writing about now, trying to get a better sense of how that all works and why I want to put this crop here, that crop there. I have not come to conclusions yet, but like Vincent, being a little boy scientist, keeping notes.
I understand.
You're looking for a specific plants that might filter. What exactly did you want to filter? Because there are different kinds of plants that will do, like hemp is a very good plant. Most people don't realize that hemp will take radiation out of the ground. If you had, for example, soil that might have been contaminated, like Fukushima or 3 Mile Island, did you know that hemp, like pharmaceutical mushrooms, will go in and bioremediate that crap out of the ground? Of course, you don't want to smoke it afterwards, but but it does bioremediate, and that's one of the reasons that hemp is so important, because of that long chain fiber. It will actually go in and wrap itself around radiation.
Ted, we're going into a break. Would you like to stay with us?
Sure, yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Ted in Washington, Doc Ram in Oregon. I'm in Missouri. We'll be right back. Ted had a great question about plants, indoor plants, and purifying the air. And we should probably discuss, do the color of the leaves have a difference? Do we want more surface area or dark green leaves better than light green leaves and so forth? Ted, please continue with your thoughts.
Thank you so much. To answer Doc Graham's question, I wasn't trying to clean out anything in particular, but only learn about those type of plants that are of broad range that could affect whether it's indoor smoke or impurities. They have several different varieties scattered about. And that'll take, of course, more research. But I just wanted to open up everybody's mind to start thinking about that and looking into it. And then
Ted,
other topic. Go ahead.
Very quickly, Ted, I used to work for a bank, and we spent quite a bit of money in the corporate offices of a credit card bank for large pots with plants for all around, scattered all around the entire complex, where the people on the phones talking to customers were, in the offices, in the cubicles. I mean, all over the bank there were indoor plants. And some probably thought it was just for looks, but I think you've got a very valid point. Please continue on with your next comment.
Thank you for that. And just to reiterate, I see that all over the downtown Seattle skyscrapers. Those are living plants with actual crews to go about and water them every so often. So I'm sure there's a strategy behind it. And also the other topic was to increase indoor moisture to work with the negative ionizer. Doc Ram, what do you think about, instead of a slump cooler for those people that either for many factors can't obtain something like that, what do you think about a essential oil diffuser, to have something like that, a desktop diffuser, to increase not just mixing it with essential oils, but was also to increase the moisture in the room?
Yeah. Essential oils are interesting. I wrote a book on that a very long time ago, but am now realizing most of the odoriferous molecule parts of essential oils are based around memory. And it turns out that not so much they're absorbing and doing things emotionally to you as much as they're evoking memories, which then trigger old responses. And that's what essential oils essentially do now. I love Seattle, by the way. I couldn't believe what I saw when I drove through there. Are you guys under smoke today?
Today, unfortunately, not. We've had some recent drizzle not too long ago, and that was such a blessing. It helped to wash everything away, but it comes in waves. I was recently
Yeah, is that mostly from Canada?
Exactly.
Yeah, you're getting your fires are mostly your smoke is from Canada. When I drove through Canada at that time, I was coming back from Vancouver Island. I'd gone through Tawasin. We were seeing like 58 fires in Canada, and Seattle was locked in big time. I've never seen anything like that ever in Seattle. We've had forest fires in the Okanagans. In fact, a couple years back, one of my homes that I built, a log home, was burnt to the ground just a couple years ago up in the Omak, Okanagan area. And I couldn't believe it. That log home I built was going to be there for 400 years, and it went down to the ground. It's interesting what's happening up there, and I'm concerned a little bit. And your traffic, of course, is weird. I've never... It took me 2.5 hours to bury my father across town.
Yeah,
that was Shealy. Yeah. I mean, really, it's nuts what's going on. And then with the smoke, everything got worse. Seattle is got a nice breeze going through it. That's one of the things I always liked about Seattle was the negative ions and the fact that no matter which direction you looked, you had mountains and water. No matter what direction you looked, it was beautiful. It's I couldn't see anything. Your visibility when I went through there was about 1 mile, and it was real bad. Down here today, it's bad again because of the Klondike fire, and we think. I think some of this is plate movement. And if that happens, be aware of Edgar Cayce and what he did say about New Jerusalem. So, I'm concerned because I grew up and went to high school in Seattle, and I love Seattle, but it's changing and may not be there very long.
Unfortunately, that's...
I didn't mean to be a doom and gloomer to you. Sorry about that.
No, not at all. Fortunately, I travel through it. I don't live in it. But I know what you mean. The only solution that I have experience with is you must rearrange your travel times at odd times of the day.
That's right, man. I remember in the late 50s when Boeing was the primary, they formed shifts. And the driving up there was, from about 2 o'clock on was jammed because there'd be a 2 o'clock, 2:30 to 3 o'clock, 3:30 release at Boeing. And people got along with each other back in the 50s and 60s when they put the viaduct in. I remember everybody was courteous like you would at a four-way stop. There were rules of engagement and who gets to do what. Today, that's all gone. I saw a lot of me first and long lines get off the freeway and different places, up near, started around Everett and got funky all the way down.
It's pure torture. Yeah.
Yeah. I miss Seattle. I miss it.
All right.
Yeah. So you're in downtown Seattle. Where are you? Is this? I know several Teds up there. That's why I was wondering if you're a radio.
No, I travel through 3 different counties: Snohomish, King, and Pierce. So I'm
right.
Yeah. Stagnant in one place. But unfortunately, you're right. There is a lot of what Vincent was saying. A lot of one-finger fistfights, gesture-wise, on the freeway.
Road rage. Yeah, that's going to increase because people are more and more frustrated at things at home, and when they go out to drive, they get angry.
Yeah, I've actually been rear-ended twice. I thought that they took the tailgate out. It was an incredible impact. But lo and behold, incredibly, it was only cosmetic. And I got out, and they thought it was going to be road rage, and I said, I don't see anything. It opens just fine. Have a good day. God bless you, and off we go.
That's the way it should be, and you're walking your talk. That's the way it should be.
It reminds me of another show you and Vincent had months ago when somebody almost wanted to physically assault you via road rage. And I decided to pay it forward, and it was another little old man in his late 70s, and he was shaking and trembling. And I said, "Sir, don't worry about it." I patted him on the shoulder. God bless you, and off he went.
Well, I'm a gray old man, and I shake and rattle and roll too, man. I'm afraid of these guys. I thought he was going to beat me up. And
that's what this gentleman thought I was going to do. And I said, "It's you. You are like my dad." I said, "No way." And people even offer.
Good for you. I'm proud of. I'm proud of.
Another guy younger than me, he offered me money. He said, "Well, can I pay you $100?" I said, "Maybe. Let's pull off the road and we'll figure it out." And at the very end, I said, "No, I don't need your money. You need to be more careful, especially watch out against the blue plague because your tabs are expired." So I'm the least of your worries.
Yeah.
That is the very last.
When you do these experiments you're planning to do, would you please keep me in your loop? I'd like to learn as well.
Absolutely, of course. And we can give and take and learn from each other, especially with this valuable show. The very last topic I wanted to mention, I know Vincent's going to get a kick out of this, because him and I are on the same page about the blue plague. In the olden days, and even in some smaller towns, it does say to serve and protect on the side of the car. But I believe they're missing two words on the very end of that slogan. And those two words are only ourselves. To serve and protect only ourselves against you, the public.
and Ted, just two more words needed to be added to what you just said. And tickets.
And
to serve tickets.
Well, to put a modern twist, and it's very uncomfortable. If you talk to most people, they're going to say, "Well, what do you mean?" To put a modern twist on that, the slogan that's on the side of their car, it shouldn't say any of that. That's just hype and marketing. What it should really say is three words: comply or die. So we're pretty much.
Well,
I'm sorry.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Comply or die, because we have the authority and the license to kill with impunity.
We do, and I'm going to leave you on this very final thought. Oh, yes. My fourth and final thought is a music video I came across on another host podcast on their show. The title of this music video is called "This is What Happens When You Call the Cops." If you look on it on YouTube, look for it on YouTube. It's very uncomfortable. It's very graphic, but it's called "This is What Happens When You Call the Cops." There's many different variations of it, but the top 2 or 3 hits on YouTube. Many police officers and lawyers, they don't even want to see this video. And if you see it, it's very uncomfortable, and you'll see why. Because it puts it all in perspective, all in a matter of less than 4 minutes. It's almost like a rap song, but it's very powerful. And it's a tearjerker in a way. It makes you feel very uncomfortable. It's very graphic. It's not for the faint of heart. And it's on there. It's still available.
Ted, I have not seen it, but are you suggesting that if you are hauled before the court, you might want to say, well, let me just, before sentencing, I'd like to introduce a piece of evidence that is common throughout the United States. Let me just play this for you. Is that what you're saying?
Possibly. I'm not directly saying that, but what I would say is, everybody listening, do not call those 3 magic numbers. It's only going to end up either with a ticket or with an accosting or with physical assault. There's an alternative to that. I think it's called Self-411. You get to put a group of people together that can be at your emergency call if you need them, instead of the classic other 3 numbers.
Yes.
I do believe it is going to be your neighbor that saves your life.
We have to be vigilant and be there for each other. Gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to me. I always enjoy your show, and I'll keep calling in.
Wonderful. Ted, thank you so much. That's Ted in Washington State, not Washington, D.C., Washington State. Thank you so much. Doc Ram and I will be right back, right after these few short commercial announcements. Doc Ram's with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. So, Rick, when people get married, many times they take these vows, and they say for better or for worse, for more barnacles or for fewer barnacles. And about the barnacles, sometimes...
Oh, Vincent. Oh, man.
Sometimes dermatologists will take out this can of liquid nitrogen, and they'll spray skin tangs, barnacles, with these little tiny blasts of liquid nitrogen. Can you tell us how that works? What does it actually do? And And
well, liquid nitrogen, is so cold, minus 100 Fahrenheit, that it'll kill a wart by a single drop. You put a liquid nitrogen drop on a wart, and it'll kill it right down through the root. See, that's the problem with most warts and things of that nature. You know, you kill the outer part of it, but because the root is still alive, it regrows itself because it's exposed to oxygen. That's why a lot of the things that you buy in Walmart or something to kill a wart will cover it with an opaque surface so that they can't breathe. But liquid nitrogen will just go right down and kill the wart itself, right down through the root. And that's why liquid nitrogen is, to my knowledge, probably the only way to really get a good wart out. Is, you get these warts on your legs and other kinds of places, and there are plantar warts or whatever on your feet. And a drop of liquid nitrogen will take care of that nonsense in a heartbeat.
Can the average guy or gal buy liquid nitrogen? I've never tried to buy it.
Well, yeah, you can, because it's used in everything. So there are refrigerant systems where you can get a tank of liquid LOX, even oxygen, other things like that. It's just that's what methamphetamine was doing. They were buying, sodium, gases that might be anhydrous ammonia, that kind of thing, where you're putting it in as a solvent to make drugs or things like that. You can buy tanks of it. That's what they do. They form a bomb, and it forms the crystals on the inside of the tank, and then you cut the tank open. You get these tanks, you rent them, and you return the tank, and they refund your money and stuff like that. And you use it for refrigerants, like anhydrous ammonia is used in your refrigerants, like Freon. Yeah, the thing is, mostly it should be done in medical. The doctor will have a little thermos with liquid nitrogen. It might last the day before it evaporates out into the atmosphere, is gone. But he keeps that, and then brings all his patients in a couple of days, taps them with a little liquid nitrogen, and take care of all those little warts all over your body. Skin tags and other kinds of creepy growth that happen to old age, like me. There's lots of different ways to approach that, but that's what liquid nitrogen is used for, mostly to get rid of warts and related, fungal things that are growing that have root systems that go down into, bedrock in your body.
Yeah, I was thinking about
a wart, even though it's right there on the surface, like on your finger or something, will go right through the finger. I was
thinking about going through the Chinese factory outlet, and you hit these bumps on the floor, that really smooth concrete floor, and I'm just wondering if that's little body parts falling off from, liquid nitrogen.
There's a Walmart shoppers, who knows? You're getting creepy. I don't know. All right, that's enough of that one, man. I really appreciate working with you, by the way. I just thought I'd like to say smart.
Well, I just had this mental picture of, my cart getting stuck on one of these. Rick, it is always fun being with you. It really is. And I am the most fortunate guy on the planet to have friends and be on USA Prepares with the wealth of information such as delivered by Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Rick, thanks so much for being my friend, and thanks for being with us at USA Prepares.